intentional, it just happens to be that way. But I think the discussion is relevant, the issue is still relevant. But before we begin, I would like to invite a very eminent panel that is present today, and we're very happy that they have readily agreed and been here. So I would first like to call upon on the stage Sen Gupta, who I don't think he needs any introduction, but it's a daunting task to introduce him nonetheless. He has been a very strong voice about democracy and what's happening around us. He is an actor who has primarily worked in Bengali and Hindi film industry. He made his feature film debut with 1998 Bollywood drama Hazar Chaurasi Ki Maa, and since then he has appeared in many films, and we have also seen him on OTT and different platforms. He is also well known for his works, including 68 Pages, 4 Chapters, the Bollywood erotic thriller Hate Story, and Teen Kaun. He is a seasoned stage and television actor. And like I said, we are very happy he's here because he is truly today in this atmosphere where people hesitate. We know artists are being attacked, that he openly sticks his neck out, and that's something we appreciate so much. So thank you, sir, for being here. We are awaiting the arrival of Jyoti Punwani, who is, of course, we all know her again, a very tall freelance journalist who has been writing on the issues of communalism. Yeah, okay. But we will wait for her and then call her upon the stage. In the meanwhile, we have the author of the book, Irfan Engineer, the director of CSSS. So welcoming him on stage as well. So I think we will have to continue and begin without Jyoti, and when she comes, we will welcome her and she will take her seat here. But I would like to take some time to essentially talk about this book as one of the authors, and why did we think it was important to bring out this book. Well, like I said, Ram Navami is again round the corner, and I think if you have been following the news, there was already one riot that took place in Hazaribagh in Jharkhand. So I don't think this is an irrelevant topic, though this book documents violence that took place in 2022 and 23. This book is a compilation of fact findings that CSSS has undertaken in 6 different states. That includes Maharashtra, Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, West Bengal, Bihar, and Jharkhand. This is where the major riots around Ram Navami took place in 22-23, covering 11 incidents of communal violence. There were riots in 11 places. So this book is a documentation of these riots. Again, I'm laying emphasis on the word documentation because we are living in an era where documentation is not easily available. The government, the state is supposed to put out figures, including on communal violence, on the National Bureau of Crime Records, but now you don't see that anymore, though it used to come till a few years back. So we are living in a place where, you know, we have blanket bans on internets at places, no data, no relevant data. Mob lynching, there is no data, but it's happening. The government talks about love jihad, but there's no data on that, and they want to have laws on that. So that's why the documentation of such things are so important. This book is essentially documentation of violence in these different places. What this book also does is it underscores a certain pattern of violence that has taken place in these 11 incidents of communal riots. But before I go there, we have taken this book discussion to places in Ahmedabad and in Kolkata, and surprisingly in Ahmedabad we were asked a question, and not a very happy question, that there was a section of lawyers who actually took objection to the title of the book, saying, why is it weaponization of Hindu festivals? You think Hindus are violent or they use weapons? No sir, we don't think that. But we do want to point out towards a pattern that is emerging. And in the book, if you take a careful reading of the book, we have distinguished between riots that have taken place because of a particular political mobilization of the Hindu right, and how there are processions, hundreds of processions that have taken place in these past 2 years and before that with community members, and those processions have concluded very peacefully with participation of Muslims and Hindus together. So this is no questioning Hindu religiosity. India has had a past, and we still do believe in the syncretic traditions of India, a shared culture in India where everyone is celebrating festivals together. So this whole narrative about how Muslims have been anti-Hindus and they don't want Hindus to celebrate their festivals or celebrate Ram, this is something that we wanted to also address in the book. So no, this is not an attack on Hindu religiosity. In fact, everywhere, all the 11 incidents, there have been traditional processions carried out by residents, including in Khargone, including in Gujarat, and which have passed peacefully. And we have had testimonies of Muslim residents in those areas who have set up stalls to welcome the rally with refreshments, paying respects to it. So this is nothing to do with Ram, or this is nothing to do with Hindu-Muslim animosity. That's what the right wing would like us to believe, but it's really about political mobilization and how it is mobilized. Before that, we would like to welcome Jyoti Punwani, who is, like I was saying, a prominent journalist who writes on communalism, human rights, and media. She is one of the prominent voices in contemporary socio-political discourse in India, who has been very openly critiquing the Hindutva politics and its implications for Indian democracy and secularism. And of her many works is the book India's Secular Dilemma, The Rise of Hindutva. We welcome Jyoti. We are glad that you could make it. So just to continue a little bit about the pattern that we have observed in our visits to all the 11 incidences, and what we want to emphasize is, if anyone here has seen riots over here, of course there is the exhibition of the 1992 riots. Again, a heartbreaking reminder of the lives lost, the entire machinery. I don't think riots are spontaneous, riots are engineered. And until a few years back, riots were definitely engineered because you needed a trigger, you needed mobilization, you needed identifying of houses which you want to burn down. You had voters list to identify people whom you wanted to attack, you needed to have explosives, etc. And this is, I think, well written by prominent scholars. But now there is a shift in this pattern, as has been observed by CSSS, and we have tried to bring it out in this book, is now it's very easy to engineer a riot. You don't need so much of preparation, because now you need a very clear chit from the state. You need some ministers or some people in authority to give a hate speech. You need a state which openly gives permission to something as volatile as these riots, which are by the VHP, the Bajrang Dal, and the right wing, who have been known for their role in fomenting tensions and violence. So at many places in the book, it has been documented that many of the rallies did not have permission, and yet these rallies were carried out. In fact, in Khargone, there was a skirmish of the organizers of this rally with a police official, and they threatened the police official as well. So that's also a commentary on where our democratic institutions are really going, in which direction. But these are rallies without permission. These are rallies which carry weapons, which again, in a public procession, you can't do. So there is flouting of hundreds of rules that are put in place. The rule of law totally disseminated. So you have no permission, you have rallies, you have weapons, and you have a mob insistent on going through spaces where there are mosques, there are dargahs, openly inciting violence there, openly. In Vadodara, if you take a look at the book again, they have attacked a dargah and a mosque. You have in Khargone, very well documented again, even otherwise, about how they were absolutely something we can't reproduce here, but abuses for Muslim women, extreme provocation, so that there is some reaction, and then the state takes over. And how does the state take over is that they will implicate Muslims in large numbers. And again, that is a heartbreaking story which the book sheds some light on, because then you have the women folk, especially in Khargon, it was very traumatizing for us to meet family after family with women and children, trying to get all the help that they could to fight tedious legal battles, because there were no men folk remaining in Khargon. And this is the place where you have bakeries, and it's very well known for its bakery products. And you have entire ecosystem and economy completely destroyed. So you have criminal cases, and of course we know about the bulldozers. So the rioters don't have to do anything. You just have to go provoke, and then the state takes over. And what earlier used to happen about burning down houses, now you have bulldozers raising down houses, and it's all legitimate, right? Because the state is doing this. So this pattern is something that we wanted to bring out, and this is what is documented in the book. What I think is important that we talk, and I hope this will be the larger discussion that the panel will also shed some light, is that this book is not about Hindu-Muslim riots. It's not about Hindu-Muslim tensions, because, like I said, it's really not about that. It's about a clear ecosystem of impunity given by the state, a robust, mushrooming Hindu right wing. Again, this is something that is documented in the book. You don't now only have the RSS, but there is a mushrooming right wing organizations, each trying to outdo the other in being rabid and in being violent and trying to get its clout in the local areas. So it's really about this transformation of a secular democracy into an authoritarian state, an illiberal state, where the narrative trying to gain currency is, see, you can't coexist with Muslims because they are essentially against Hindu festivals. They are against Ram. Of course, the Ram who is a Maryada Purushottam is forgotten, and now we have the saffron Ram, very angry for some reason, very misogynist for some reason. But of course, that's a completely different debate. But the transformation of India and the saffronization of spaces, how they are being appropriated by the right wing, is something, I think this is what the book is trying to trace. And something that has clearly kind of worried us as authors are, again, testimonies after testimonies about how Muslims feel a loss of culture because they have been part of these rallies. They have been part of a shared culture. So we are a land of Sufi saints. We are a land of so many Muslims who have paid odes and tributes to Ram and Krishna. And now this wealth of an experience, shared living, has been taken away. So I think the largest damage that this kind of narrative has done is to the shared culture of India. So this is what the book is, and we hope that maybe later we could read a small part of it. But these are the larger issues that the book tries to cover. Thank you. Can we call upon Sen Gupta to speak next, give his comments?
Thank you. Congratulations for the book. Very well researched, data oriented, facts and figures galore, encapsulated in a very handy book, which probably is a must read, not just for us, the converted, but for even at a simple academic level in schools and colleges. My only regret is I wish this sort of book existed 35 years ago, when I was in college or in school, for the basic confusion that we all had about what is communalism in my youth. We were all partially ignorant and partially confused about what really is communalism. Because in my growing up days, the general discourse that came from the dominant cultural milieu, which was the left liberal milieu, part of my family was part of the Communist Party at that time. was always that communalism is engineered and orchestrated for class reasons. This was the dominant discourse that I grew up with. I was given examples of various riots which happened in Aligarh and Meerut and Malyana, where the working class was affected. And I was told, or we were made to believe that, and truthfully so, that most of the riots were orchestrated by the interests of the big bourgeoisie to polarize and divide the labor, the working class, in tandem with the ruling National Bourgeois Party, which was the Indian National Congress. And thus, in my mind, from the beginning, every riot constituted a strategy of the bourgeoisie and the National Bourgeois Party to divide the working class and keep them divided for economic interests. The idea that religion per se or the fundamentalist fervor per se has anything to do with it, or it is going to be, that never occurred to me. Till very late, even when it was looming largely around me, the fundamentalist fervor, we were still made to believe that these are just fringe elements. They will never become mainstream. I grew up in various parts of India because of my father's transferable job. I was born in Calcutta, a Bengali. Then we moved to Delhi, where I grew up in north of India. And via Kathmandu, Nepal, etc., I landed up in Mumbai, the western part of India. While I was growing up in 70s and early 80s in Calcutta, religious festivals were probably the most happy collective occasions. Any religious festival, it didn't matter. I was damn proud to be an Indian and never wanted to settle in the West because I sincerely felt that the West lacked the idea of festivals, the idea of celebrating collectively. And that was our strength. That is what I believed in. I very readily used to be, as a toddler I remember, be in the streets when Muharram processions used to go in Calcutta. They were spectacle and I loved it. As much as I loved the Jagannath Rath Yatra, which used to happen in the roads during the Rath time. And both were equally spectacular for me and equally celebratory for me. I never ever realized from anyone's words the religiosity aspect of the festivals, frankly, if you ask me. Of course there were religiosity in it, but I never realized it. I always looked at it as a cultural coming together of people to observe and celebrate something. I remember in every home, even in communist homes, they used to hang portraits of Kali, the Shakti, and Ramakrishna Paramhans and his wife Sarada Devi's photographs. It was a very common thing in Bengal, in every Bengali home. And Ramakrishna was an ascetic, not the kind of Babas, Swamis, Gurus, Shrishis that you see today. Ascetics are the ones who are almost renunciating egalitarian spiritualists. They had nothing and they had just their bhakti. That was the dominant middle class or working class presence in Bengali homes in those days of asceticism. And the other dominant culture in Bengal was the cult of Chaitanya, which was the bhakti tradition. From there emerged the Baul tradition, which was very, very, very popular, both in the agrarian class, the working class, the middle class, the upper class, you call it, because of the music and poetry which exploded with progressive ideas. And the Baul and the Fakiri tradition overlapped beautifully. One never could separate the Fakiri from Baul. Fakiri came from the Sufi tradition, of course. So when a singer got up in a train, in a local train singing, you could never make out whether he's from the Vaishnav tradition or from the Sufi tradition. We always call them Fakir Sahib. Phokir Sahib, in the way a Bengali would call them. And that was so common. The taziyas and the urs which went, where they collected with the chadars and all, was the most common thing in any Hindu locality. When I say Hindu locality, I mean a general middle class locality in Bengal, which may not be dominated by the Muslim population. It was a very, very common thing. I never realized it. Then I moved to Delhi. And then Ram came into my life. Because in Bengal, I never saw Ram, any trace of Ram in my growing up years, ever. No photograph of Ram, no mention of Ram. Out of the fabulous epics that one is to read. And epics we read. We were given Mahabharata and Ramayana, which were called Bachcho ka Ramayana and Mahabharata. Chotoder Ramayana and Mahabharata, they used to call it, abridged ones. At a very, very young age. And we read them curiously with full enjoyment because they were captivating stories, but nothing more than stories. Never were our grandmothers who gave us those books ever tell us that these are divine sort of projections. Never. They were epic stories. At home, there would be continuous debate going on about the moral position of Ram, where very easily he could be denounced by somebody for taking amoral or immoral positions vis-a-vis Bali and Sugriv, vis-a-vis whatever. So this denouncement of and taking apart and delineation within the epics was a very, very common thing in every household in Bengal. In every club, what we call those neighborly soirees where people could play carom and discuss Kapil Dev's cricket as well as Marx and Hegel, there Ramayana and Mahabharata would be taken apart just like that. And it was a very common thing. One never realized that these were anything more than fantastic epics which captured the cultural ethos and philosophical traditions of Upanishads from our country. That was that. And then I went to Delhi, where a large part of the North Indian population, not the Punjabis, but per se, but the large part of them, greeted each other with Ram Ram Bhaiya. It was a very common thing, even I would say. Ram Ram Bhaiya, that was the thing. All the Ram Navami festivals and all, the popular chant would be Siyapati Ramachandra Ki Jai. That was the most common chant that we heard. And we used to love it because there would be music, there would be festivity. It was fabulous. Jagarans would happen in every neighborhood. Apart from the Jagarans keeping awake in the night, there was nothing problematic about it. They were just fun thing that people came together and ate together and enjoyed together. And Ram Leela. Ram Leela is where I discovered my love for theatre, if you ask me. The Ram Leela Maidan in Delhi was a fantastic space and an egalitarian space in that sense between Red Fort and Jama Masjid. The Ram Leelas that used to happen there is to have lakhs and lakhs of audiences, mostly working class, mostly from what we call the toiling masses. And there were Hindus and Muslims galore. All from Old Delhi, the entire Muslim population of Old Delhi used to be there in the Ram Leela ground. Many used to be participating in the plays, backstage, and everything. Every shop which was there added to the festivity. So Ram Leela was one big, happy, performing art festival that used to happen in North India. In UP, I believe it was even better. Craft-wise and otherwise, it was even better. But I can only talk about Delhi because I was Delhi-centric. And then things started changing mid-80s. By that time, I was in student politics and I was very much part of street theatre movement with Safdar Hashmi, Comrade Safdar Hashmi in Delhi. And we were all very busy with Bofors and Shah Bano and you name it at that time. Silently on this side, Ram Janmabhoomi movement had started. We didn't notice it so much, we didn't talk about it so much. In Doordarshan, Ramayana, the serial was being telecast. And believe me, it was very popular amongst Hindus and Muslims. Every household in Delhi during the telecast of Ramayana closed their doors. There was not a soul in the streets. In the Muslim area or the Hindu area, they all watched Ramayana. I don't know whether it had a negative effect or a positive effect, but it was there in every household. Because Hindu Darshan was the only source of entertainment in those days, and everybody watched it. But parallelly, the Ram Janmabhoomi movement was happening, which I realized when I started seeing these saffron-clad sadhus and sadhvis in various neighborhoods of Delhi, walking by and giving certain chants which were blood-calling. And I didn't realize what was happening. This I had never understood till then. Names like Sadhvi Ritambara was being floated around. You know, she was leading some of the processions over there, and Uma Bharti was there, and so many other Maharajas which I didn't know. And those chants that were coming, those slogans that were coming. Now this I could not equate with my idea of communalism, which was the British constructed, Congress appropriated, big bourgeoisie orchestrated. Communalism, where you would throw stones, you would throw meat into this place or that place, and you would create this artificial scenario for a conflict, and then there would be destruction on both sides, and city will burn and then come back to normal after 3-4 days of curfew. And these other elements will move in, which is new factories will lay up or whatever will happen. This was very different. This was a little scary. But the political class didn't seem to address it at all. Then I was going to UP at that time, taking workshops on theatre and stuff like that. And in UP stations, I would see these VHP processions of saints, so-called saints, openly declaring, I remember in 1988, that very soon we will be sitting in the parliament. They were saying, and we will make your policies. I said, what? This can't be true. These VHP saints are saying we will take over parliament. And this is 1988 I'm talking about. I'm not talking about 2014, 15, 16, 17, that now this outcry is there from us, liberal class. At that time, I had got into debate with various VHP saints who used to travel in train with us. We used to debate on Mahabharata, Ramayana, etc., etc. And they used to tell me, your knowledge is historical and scientific. Our knowledge is divine knowledge, and so our knowledge is greater than your knowledge, etc., etc. And they used to defeat me in all debates by saying my knowledge is over your knowledge, etc., etc. Doesn't matter. But the point was, this was happening. And I clearly remember in 1989 when the election was taking place, and I was part of electoral campaign for certain trade unions and stuff like that. And we were campaigning against Congress at that time, very strongly. And I just asked very innocently to one of the women activists over there, part of the Janwadi Mahila Samiti. I said, Comrade, don't you think that what's happening around us also needs to be addressed in the election? Because this seems to be not stopping, you know. And I was dismissed. I was told that this will never be mainstream. It cannot happen in near future either. India will always be about Congress and non-Congress. There will be only two forces in India. And these are the two forces which we have to fight the Congress, because they represent the interest, the vested interests of the feudal and the capitalist class, and etc., etc., etc. Fine. 2 years later, 2.5 years later, Babri Masjid comes down. Out of the blue, right? And I saw within my household slow polarization creeping in. My father, who was so progressive, who has introduced me to every progressive idea in the world, who used to attend EMS Namadripad's rallies in Calcutta and Brigade Maidan and all in his younger days. I distinctly remember when on the news the demolition was being shown, L.K. Advani was being arrested, and he was screaming, 600 temples were broken in Kashmir, what about that, and all these things. He very quietly from behind his newspaper said, yeah, they have also done it. So this was my father, who was very progressive. But somewhere within the reservoir of his progressiveness, there probably was a doubt which came out. And me and my sister were shocked. Very soon in Delhi, in the parks where all these morning walks used to happen, we could see that the morning walk colleagues were getting slowly polarized and divided between us and them. It was happening. And we couldn't put a finger. We went to Ayodhya to perform as part of Artists Against Communalism. We were doing an exhibition there called Hum Sab Ayodhya, which is the 200 different kinds of Ramayana which existed. And we were trying to talk about the different kinds of Ramayana which exists, and each one has its own perspective, and each one is so true to our history and our cultural progression and all that. That exhibition was broken by the elements over there, of course, and the police told us to go get away from Ayodhya and go to the capital and do all these things and not spoil Ayodhya, etc. But whatever, we were there. It was a beautiful celebration. Sitara Devi danced and Asta Devu danced, and there was music, and we performed, and there was puppetry, and we did it. For 3 days we were there in Ayodhya performing, and we came back. And I remember in the railway station now, the same politicos who had told me that they will never become mainstream, telling us that now we have to recognize the new face of communalism, which is slowly moving towards fundamentalism. And yet, this was not addressed as strongly as it should have. If you remember, in the VP Singh government in '89, the left and BJP were partners in supporting VP Singh at that time. Till L.K. Advani's Rath was stopped by Lalu Prasad Yadav and the government fell because of that, they were together. And I believe that because of that togetherness, BJP somehow got a little more legitimacy, just as Jansangh had got legitimacy in 1977 due to emergency and being accepted by Jayaprakash Narayan. So the legitimacy happens like this, where somewhere in our political strategy, we tend to look at the lesser and the higher and evil and all. We try to nuance it a bit too much and slowly legitimize things. I think BJP got definitely legitimized at that particular period during VP Singh's government, 1.5 years, not too wrong. But Rath Yatra had happened. The rural area had got communalized. We were told that in village India, communal riots had never happened. It was always in the industrial towns which were communally scarred, not rural India. But it was happening in rural India. And I would like to believe, now I'm not a sociologist, but I would like to believe during that Rath Yatra, through the villages of India, there was also caste configuration happening. That they were trying to unify the caste under the common banner of Hindu pride, which is Hindutva, but Hindu pride. Because parallelly, they elected a OBC chief minister of BJP in UP for the first time, not a Brahmin, but an OBC chief minister was elected in UP. Congress had all through elected Brahmin chief ministers in Bihar and UP, all through. And then BJP came to power, they put forth an OBC chief minister called Kalyan Singh, who was the chief minister when Babri Masjid was brought down. So somehow the caste configuration was also happening at that time, and no one noticed it. No one realized all these newer elements that's going to take over. And this was 92. And then in 97, and again when National Front government was formed, it was formed as an anti-Congress lobby, opposing Congress, for everyone to come together, which gave way to the NDA government in 97. And suddenly the socialists, the Dalits, the OBCs, they all became part of Atal Bihari Vajpayee's NDA government, fully legitimizing BJP, and RSS goes to work. RSS doesn't stop working. RSS started taking over institutions from that time. It's not just post-2014. Post-2014, we are seeing it more, we are noticing it more. But right from 97, they started entering academic institutions, slowly, surreptitiously. The defense lobbies, they were entering the defense lobbies, definitely entering the civil unions and civil service and stuff like that. It happened from then. We look at Atal Bihari Vajpayee today as a moderate in comparison to this thing. But when he and one of the original Sanghis was in power, the RSS could not be kept in check. Who will keep in check? When you have George Fernandes on one side and Ram Vilas Paswan on the other side, who will keep them in check? So yeah, the rot started long time back. All the things that we are seeing now, it is not something which has happened overnight. I keep saying this. My colleagues in the industry or in the theatre world have not suddenly become radicalized in religion and all. No. Things were there inside. It was there, dormant. They just needed a class monitor to say, hey, all rules are out. You can come out now and do whatever you want. And they come out. And they openly show their face. I'll tell you one simple incident and then I'll pause it over there. Just a few years back, I think 6-7 years back, I went to Delhi to Shri Fort Auditorium where the jury for International Film Festival of India was meeting. And in that jury, I saw certain people who had absolutely no status to be in the jury. And I know them. I looked at them and some of them I know, not friends, acquaintances. And I asked him, I said, "Tu kya kar raha hai yahan pe? International Film Festival jury mein? Tu kab se jury mein aa gaya?" He said, laughingly, he said something and it stuck, a note. He said, "इतने साल तुम लोगों ने बहुत मजे किए. 60 साल तुम लोगों ने बहुत मजे किए. हर जगह पे. अब मोदी साहब आए हैं तो थोड़े हमें भी मजे करने दो." He meant it. Because he knew in Sangeet Natak Academy, in Sahitya Kala Parishad, in Shriram Bharatiya Kala Kendra, in every Kendras, in every institutions, it was us. Indian Council for Historical Research, ICCR, it was left liberals who were putting their cultural imprint, who were deciding and who in their certain arrogance and huge amount of complacency never realized that a day will come when they will come to power and they will try to do the same thing. Just flip it. Oh, you do historical research, we will do mythical research. Oh, you preside over scientific, National Institute of Scientific Development, we will turn it over and go and propagate Vedic science. You talk about cinema as a progressive and radical, we will also talk about cinema, but our kind of progressive and radical. And it's just a flipping of the same thing, it's not any different. It has happened because, unfortunately, you can call me cynical if you want to, but largely because our complacency and our arrogance, that things would remain the same. We would always be in this dominant protest mode where we will get our things done partially by a bourgeois government who will take 1 step back, 2 step forward, 3 step back, 4 step forward. We never realize that so cruelly the door will be shut in front of us and we will be chased with batons. So yeah, unfortunately we are in that Hindi mein jo kehte hain mode pe hum khade hain. I don't know where the road will turn, but thank you so much. There.
Good evening. Sorry I was late. And tolerate. So, where such processions exist, the RSS has now started the Ram Navami procession. And in fact, I encountered this in Bombay itself around 1991. There were 2 riots in Jogeshwari, which is a Muslim-dominated area, Jogeshwari East, one after the other in December and January, and they were quite serious. You want to help us in doing both. And after, that was during the Ayodhya movement. And recently in Malwani, which is also a Muslim-dominated area, or at least a substantial number of Muslims live there, where there was no tradition of Ram Navami processions. It was started in 2022. And it was carried, in 2023 saw violence break out during the Ram Navami procession. And there also it was not a question of religion or anything. It was, Malwani has been in the eyes of the RSS and the BJP for a long time because the local MLA is a Muslim and they want to dislodge him from there. And they have been targeting Malwani as a place where illegal migrants come and there's love jihad. And especially Mr. Lodha, who is also an MLA and a minister and a big builder, has been very much part of this campaign, raising the issue in the assembly of illegal migration and all that. In fact, when I did a piece on Malwani after the violence, I found out that one Bangladeshi was found over there, unregistered, who was really an illegal immigrant. But he was also the BJP's local committee chairman. So, you know, I mean, that shows how politics is all that matters. So, I myself have been part of 3 VHP yatras in Bombay. I had gone to participate because I wanted to see what was going on. And something I noticed in these yatras was very serious stuff for people like us who want to counter the violence or at least counter this whole hatred. One thing is that the RSS, when they organize the yatras nowadays, they include all Hindu groups which are active in the locality. Earlier it used to be Navratri Mandal would take out the Navratri Yatra or Ganpati Mandal would take out the Ganpati Yatra. And with the local Muslims would also be part of it and help organize and everything. It would be a community affair basically. But now when the RSS has taken over, they include every single Hindu group from Navratri, Ganpati to Shiv, Krira Mandals to everything you can think of. And they want it to be seen as a means of uniting Hindus. I mean, they've always grumbled that Hinduism is too diverse to be controlled by one organization. And here is an opportunity to unite Hindus on the one hand. Secondly, make them feel that they are part of one Hindu Samaj. And thirdly, with the participation of all these groups, you get a very massive procession, which can show their strength. And one feature, of course, is a lot of outsiders come to these RSS processions. They are not limited only to locals. So that is one new feature which I found in these yatras organized by the VHP and RSS. Secondly is, to part of this uniformity is they also give T-shirts to all the participants. So everyone wears the same clothes in the procession with Jai Shri Ram and that flag of Ayodhya Mandir and all that. They also decide which slogans will be shouted and they also decide which songs will be played. So it's all one centrally controlled affair. It's not a community affair. It has nothing to do with faith or exuberance or anything like that, as he described the festivals which he has seen. It's controlled by them and it's an organized thing, you know, which they do. So when I was part of one of these yatras, I saw that what this does to the people over there. One thing about the songs there is they are very catchy, you know. They are all full of abuses against Muslims and they are all glorify violence against Muslims and glorify Hindus as warriors and stuff and really bad language and all. But the music is so catchy that everyone dances to that music, especially the young people who are in the procession, and it's dominated by young people. So in at least one of the yatras, I asked the RSS guy, which it ended in a railway station at Malad. It was taken out for Shaurya Divas, which they, December 6th, they celebrate as Shaurya Divas when Babri Masjid was demolished. And when the speeches were over, luckily half the crowd had left by then because they were really bad speeches. But the remaining crowd that was there, the speaker said, Asha, now you all can dance. And everyone started dancing. So, you know, I asked him, what has this got to do with religion or Babri Masjid or anything? He said, see, this is the way youngsters want to celebrate, want to observe their religion in this manner. And we want youngsters, so we are not going to object to it. And I mean, despite their claims of sanskari, 5,000-year culture and all that, they don't find anything wrong in this kind of, it's really like what disco dancing or whatever you call it. They allow it and they encourage it. So in another yatra where I had gone, which was actually a Ram Navami yatra at Antop Hill, all throughout the yatra, these guys and girls both were dancing with such abandon while this music was playing, that I really wonder, do they know the words of those songs? I mean, I was writing down the song because I was there for a different purpose. But do half of them at least know the words of these songs, or they only listen to the music? And if they know the words, do they agree with those words? I mean, it would be interesting to find out from them whether they are part of this thing ideologically or for other reasons. You know, could it be that they are seeing this as an opportunity to mix with the opposite sex, to dance with the opposite sex, which is an opportunity they don't normally get and which their parents would never give. Here they're coming with their parents' approval. In fact, I was wondering, watching them, whether their parents know when they're allowing their children to go for a Ram Navami procession, what exactly their children are up to. Would they allow them otherwise? So these are the features which I have seen in these yatras. And one girl told me that her brother, who was not at all interested in religion, has suddenly started going for these VHP yatras because he really feels that he belongs, and it gives him a sense of strength being part of that yatra. And especially in her area, which is in Kalyan, these yatras also believe in closing down non-veg shops and all that kind of stuff and becoming vegetarian. So maybe it gives him a feeling of superiority or a feeling of strength. That's why he participates in these. So when we are trying to counter this, do we have any counter culture to this kind of thing, which is so attractive to the young people, especially in slums? I mean, I don't know political party except CPM, I would say, I think, has any such culture which can counter this kind of mobilization and this kind of music and all that. And I don't know, there are a lot of social groups who work in slums, maybe through their sports activities or their other competitions which they have. They might be preventing them from going to these VHP yatras and all. Although one principal in Kalyan told me that NCC used to be something which used to, we really enjoyed by young boys. But he doesn't think that now NCC can hold out against the kind of attractions which the RSS is holding out to these boys. So that's something which we should think of. What can be done, if at all anything we can do? And this is where I feel that the role of the police becomes very important, because finally we are just individuals or we are just groups. And we are no match for an organization as strong as the RSS, which is anyway backed by the state. So the role of the police becomes very important. Now the thing is that religious processions are not new, and violence over religious processions is not new either. It's been going on since independence, or soon after independence, and even before independence. So it's not possible that the police haven't found a way of dealing with it. I mean, it's not something very difficult. And so many commissions of inquiry, so many judges have given so many suggestions to how this thing can be tackled. The latest being Sri Krishna Commission, where the judge has recommended that any religious procession that's taken out, a very hefty deposit should be paid by the organizers, and it should be forfeited if it results in violence. And the organizers should also pay for the deployment of the police for that procession. I mean, this was in '98, that's 30 years ago almost. I don't think any amount of hefty deposit will be a deterrent to some organization like the RSS with its resources and all that. Maybe if they had a clause that the cops who are escorting the police will be suspended if violence breaks out, then the police might have a different attitude towards these. But for that, you require political will. And I mean, it's the question which we always ask is, why did the police allow the procession? It has been asked in this book a number of times, because everyone knows what the potential of these processions are. Why do they allow them? The problem now is that if they don't allow them also, VHP and all are going to go ahead and it happened in 92, 93 riots, even without police permission, so many rallies were taken out by the Shiv Sena. And the police didn't arrest anyone because they said the situation would get aggravated if we arrested them there and then. So, and now the situation is much worse. They are in power everywhere. So police allows or doesn't allow, they are going to take it out. Maybe that's one reason the cops don't this thing. But actually in Bombay, the cops have disallowed processions on certain occasions. In Meera Road, there was a riot and they didn't allow a procession to be taken out where Raja Singh was to come. He's a MLA from Telangana who is known for his inflammatory speeches. But they went to court and court gave the permission, so with certain conditions, which were not at all stuck to at all because I had gone for that rally. Those conditions were not at all adhered to. But maybe the police know that there's no point in stopping these processions. But then they have a response. There's also another thing about the police, which is not just their professionalism, which is questionable when it comes to processions. It's also that their mindset, what is their mindset? I mean, we all know through the studies which have been done on riots throughout so many years that the police also have a Hindutva mindset. It's never been hidden. So they are not really dying to stop these people or anything like that. They were also seeing that it's okay that if a procession is taken out like this as a show of strength. In fact, in Indore, when the BJP government was first in power, before Babri Masjid was demolished, so around 89, 90, I had gone there and there was a cop who actually sang a bhajan in the procession. But he made sure that he took out his belt, which had his number on it, which identified him. And I had asked the chief minister then, that Sundarlal Patwa was the chief minister, the RSS man, that how can you not punish this cop? And he said, see, he took out his belt, so he was not really on official duty. And what's wrong if a Hindu policeman expresses his religious feelings by singing a bhajan in a procession? There's nothing really wrong in that. I mean, there at least that fig leaf of taking out the belt was there. Now there's no such thing in Sambhal. That commanding officer, Anuj Chaudhary, who became very famous when he said that Muslims who don't want holy color on them should stay at home. He has been part of so many religious processions in full uniform, and the chief minister has backed him all the way. So there is no dividing line between the police and the mob. Which, I mean, in Bombay we used to hear the police say ki uniform ke niche hum log bhi Shiv Sainik hai and all. That all has been said, but now यूनिफॉर्म के ऊपर भी हम लोग शिव सैनिक हैं और नॉट शिव सैनिक लेकिन बजरंग दल हैं. So that is also we have to take into account that is the kind of police we have, and no government has really done anything to change that mentality. I mean, I can only think of Lalu Prasad when he was in Bihar and the CPM when it ruled Bengal, where there were no riots, I think, where they had the political will to send the message that they will not tolerate any riots. But no Congress government has ever done this. So, but still I would say that, you know, my experience in Bombay, in these 3 yatras which I attended, which were all organized by the VHP while a BJP government was in power, the police really did a good job. I noticed that they were out in full strength, at least where mosques were coming on the way. Like either they had barricaded the roads which led to the mosque, or they stood outside the mosque in like a human chain. Definitely the message went out that these mosques are under our protection. Now, whether finally, if the mob had become violent, whether they would have managed to control them, I don't know. Whether they would have fired, because no one ever fires on Hindus in our country. When they are out as Hindus, they don't fire on them. But at least that message went that we are guarding this mosque. And nothing happened in any of these processions. So I don't know whether that is, of course, Fadnavis was Home Minister then, but I don't know whether that's because this was 1 year before Assembly elections. I really don't know the reason why the Bombay police behaved in this professional manner, but they did. So how do we then manage if we can't depend on the police and we know what they are like and there is no political will to stop what is happening, especially in UP and also there is no political will, and I think in Maharashtra now also I don't see any signs of that. What can we as citizens do? I just feel from my experience in Antop Hill, the Ram Navami Yatra was really an eye-opener because it went off peacefully, although it was organized by the VHP. There were some reasons for that. One was that there was a tradition in that area, Sangam Nagar, to have a Ram Navami Yatra every year. The locals used to do it anyway, and Muslims used to participate in it also. So this time also, although the VHP took over and they involved all the Hindu organizations in it, Muslims were still part of the yatra, and in fact there was a stage which had been set up to felicitate the processionists and all. And in that stage there was a banner which said Ramzan Eid and Ram Navami Mubarak. I mean, last few years, unfortunately, Ram Navami has been falling during Ramzan every time. So that banner was there, and there was the DCP of the area who was standing on that stage keeping an eye on the procession. And he was, the Hindus and Muslims, local leaders were on the stage to felicitate the processionists. And the cops made sure that the procession, which was really huge, but they made sure that it started after iftar and after the namaz, which is said after the iftar. So the streets were clear of any kind of large numbers of Muslims coming out of the mosque. I mean, it was supposed to start at 5, it started at 7 or 7:30, by which time the iftar was over, namaz was over. And they actually turned off the music when Azan was heard later on, because it went on till 10 o'clock at night, and the second namaz also took place. And I was really quite surprised to see that the music was turned off when the Azan was being played. So I spoke to some policemen there and congratulated them and all that. And they said that, well, you know, we will have gone from here, but it is for the locals to live peacefully with each other. So that is why we have done all this. I mean, it must be a rare policeman. In fact, I've seen even in this book that if a yatra does not end in violence, it's either because the police officer is secular or because there's political pressure on him. I mean, both cases are very rare. So I don't know here if there was political pressure or if the officer was secular. In either case, whatever it was, it worked. So I would just say that, you know, one thing, there was another strategy which was used to stop the violence. In 2023, a lot of, in Govandi and in Malwani, Ram Navami processions ended in violence. There was some sporadic violence at least. So but in 2024, nothing happened, and that was because the court was monitoring the police at that time. Now, you know, it's not, thank God, unlike previously where only a few human rights groups used to rush to court and all. Now there's a whole new generation of young Muslims who are not willing to just sit quietly and let the state do what it wants. I mean, not that they are coming on the roads and all, but they're all going to police, filing complaints against hate speech. And when the police is not taking action, they are going to court. So what happened was that independently, not as a coordinated effort, people from Govandi, from Mira Road, from Malwani, all filed petitions because no action was being taken against Nitesh Rane and others. And the court said that no one will be allowed to disturb the peace during Ram Navami. And so they made the police were very conscious. They called Mohalla committee meetings and they made sure that nothing, and they send the message that if you are going to create trouble, you will be arrested. So nothing happened in those processions in last year, that is. Now this year Ram Navami is this Sunday. So I don't know what's going to happen because elections are over and there's nothing to lose. So we'll have to see what happens. So I would just say that it is for us to see all this and to see whether we can build a counter narrative on our part, or whether we can, how do we counter this kind of thing? How do we make sure that Muslims and Hindus celebrate these festivals together. I mean, Bombay has a tradition of mohalla committees, but there are only few now left in the city. So do we revive those? What do we do? And I actually, till I read this book, I had this feeling that, it's absolutely inhuman and horrible to expect Muslims to not get provoked when the provocation is so great and it is deliberate also. I mean, it's meant to provoke them. But I used to feel that, okay, just close your eyes and let those damn people dance and be vulgar and whatever they want to do. Just let it pass for an hour or whatever it is, Close your eyes and ears and hide yourself in your homes and don't react. Maybe then there'll be peace and all. Because once you start throwing stones, then the whole cycle starts of demolitions of stone pelters' houses, which has been documented here. But in this book, I found that in Jharkhand, there was a procession of Ram Navami where the Muslims didn't react. In fact, when they did react, the elders held them back. And yet they were arrested just to show balance, because Hindus were arrested. The police officer was a good guy. He arrested Hindus, but to show balance, he arrested Muslims. And the way the Muslims were arrested by the cops is what created all the problem. So even if you show restraint and you don't react, I mean, this is what happens. So I really don't know what's the solution. I would just like to say one thing that, this thing about not passing by mosques and all that. A large number of Hindus who are not RSS and who will never participate in a riot and will never support a riot also, they do feel that in a country where Hindus are a majority, why can't a procession be taken out outside a mosque? I mean, it's too much to expect. That is Muslim appeasement. And many Hindus have told me who really have nothing to do with RSS. I know them quite well. But this was said to me many years ago when not in this atmosphere. Those days it was just throwing gulal. That's what used to happen. The procession would go, linger outside the mosque, throw gulal on the mosque, shout some slogans, and then move on. But now it's a completely different level altogether. The kind of vulgarity, people even climb up on mosques and take out the green flags and hoist the saffron flags. So now I don't know if Hindus would say that Hindus who are not part of the 30% who always vote BJP. With any others, would they say that this is also okay in a Hindu country? Why can't we do all this kind of thing? Those Hindus whom I used to talk to before, who didn't see anything wrong, they didn't see this as a way of insulting Muslims or a way of taunting Muslims by the majority or showing who's boss over here. But now definitely that is the aim. I mean, there's nothing religious about doing this. So I don't know whether Hindus would still support this kind of thing. And frankly also, I don't know what is the solution to these Ram Navami processions. Thank you.
Can we have Irfan Engineer, the author, speak, please?
Thank you, Neha. Thank you, Joy and Jyoti. Joy had a fascinating story about the change of times. Actually, we were visualizing the entire change of scenario, change of times, change of context. Jyoti took us through many such processions, the complexities in the processions, the differences in the processions, how police handled some of the processions, how processionists behaved differently and different. And these, we try to capture this in our book also. It is there in the book. Just in support of this, I would like to cite 2-3 instances about the processions that we have cited, which will actually reinforce what Jyoti was saying, that we can't look at all the processions in the same way. There are, or all the police officers, or all VHP guys, or etc., in the same way. There are nuances which the book tries to capture about. Just snippets I'll give, and then we can have a discussion. We would like to invite comments from the audience. Just a few snippets. One was in Lohardaga, Jharkhand. where when we met local Muslims, they told us that in their childhood, or even until the year before when the riot took place in Lohardaga, they would actually stitch new clothes during Ram Navami. And children used to love, parents used to take children in Ram Navami procession because there also would be a fair, it would be celebration where everybody participated, including children would be excited because they will get to wear new clothes. As we were going to Kodarma again in Jharkhand, we came across a town where, in spite of all these provocations, Muslims held back. They were very restrained. They told us that it was very difficult to restrain our young boys with boiling blood, etc. But we held back. And I felt at that time that actually, we captured 11 such riots during this procession. But actually, I reflected on that moment and felt, oh my God, this year hundreds of processions must have gone on like this with all the provocations. It's not that these provocations happened only in this 11, but it's like if one procession is stoned, then they have achieved their goal. Actually, they want that stoning of that procession. And they have achieved their goal. Rest all the state will do. Whatever earlier rioters had to do all that hard work of rioting, now the state will demolish the homes. They will arrest Muslims in large number, beat them up in the lockups, keep them, use very draconian acts, keep them behind bars for months together and people from working class Muslims who daily earn their bread by hawkers and plumbers, or who daily earn their bread and they can't eat they can't have their food unless they go to work, and their breadwinners are behind bars for a number of sometimes months. So rioters do all that. Ujjain, I'm just telling you snippets which are there in the book. In Ujjain, which is a very small town actually, you can tour entire Ujjain maybe in half an hour or so. The procession went on for 3 hours. They were going up and down, shouting slogans. Once the procession passed, people felt relieved. Okay, the procession passed, but it came back. Again they felt relieved. Again it came back. Then somebody must have felt that the only way to get rid of this procession is by throwing a stone. But I agree with Jyoti, in spite of that we should not be, because the consequences are for the entire community in that locality, community in the country, and for democracy in the country, in the entire country. So I do believe that even then the stone should not have been thrown. How can you restrain yourself? The third thing about Khargone I would like to add to Jyoti, that actually this first traditional rally which passed off peacefully, where Muslims also participate in that rally. They welcome the procession, they offer some soft drink or some snack or water or whatever. That had passed off peacefully. Then there was a second, and in most of these 11 cases that we have recorded, it's the second procession that was. The first traditional procession passed off peacefully, and the second procession organized by VSP and Bajrangal, it is that procession that provoked violence. So the police officer in Khargone did try to prevent this second procession. But he was overwhelmed, force was used. The story was not of Hindu using force against police, but Muslims using force against that police. That police officer was transferred, and the second SP that came in that place then was very repressive towards the community, and rest of the things followed. In Kodarma, the town in Jharkhand, couldn't believe when we saw video, and nobody denied that video. Even the police officer, Hindus, everybody, nobody said this video is false. You see in that video, I mean, Jyoti was asking the question whether they understand the slogan or they don't understand the slogans, or they are just dancing. The youth were dancing in that procession. And I can't use those words that were being used, but I'll tell you that when two people with very less vocabulary, linguistic skills, when they fight, the abuses, abusing each other's women relatives, they were shouting those abuses and dancing on those abuses. And they were calling Muslims all that. Not that that happened in all the processions but they have used this anti-women, anti-Muslim women. It really comes to me as a question. Why not a single police officer recorded that? Why not a single processionist or those who were onlookers felt that this is not about Hinduism? When you are carrying the sacred, when it is Ram Navami procession, sacred photos of our Lord, you can't be giving this kind of abusive words. Why didn't anybody record that? Why didn't a single journalist report it? Or at least record it? I don't know how that Kodarma video got out. Sometimes these processionists themselves record and upload this as a badge of their bravery, what they have achieved, etc., etc. I don't want to speak much, but Jyoti has given some good suggestions or probable as to what we can do. But I know one thing. Wherever police officers are given a task, very clear orders and task, direction, that no nonsense in a procession has to be tolerated, police officers are capable of producing results everywhere and anywhere. And the example I would like to give is when Vajpayee was the Prime Minister and Sangh Parivar was mobilizing in Ayodhya all the Karsevaks. When there was a clear-cut direction to the police officer, V.N. Rai, he's a secular police officer, he was perhaps selected for the purpose because of his secular credentials, perhaps, I don't know. But when he was given a clear direction, and the entire Hindu nationalist organizations had challenged that we will mobilize Karsevaks. As many as on October in October 1990, when the Babri Masjid was demolished. When the police officer was given clear-cut task, nobody could enter Ayodhya, no Karsevak could enter Ayodhya and do any nonsense. In fact, Singhal tried to enter, and I remember he tried to enter dressed as a woman to lead the procession, and he was caught before he could enter Ayodhya, even in that woman's dress that he was, even in the woman's disguise that he chose. He was caught, arrested and put behind bars and whatever. So wherever police are determined, they are capable. They have that capability, they have that professionalism, but it only means that police officers are not determined, as Jyoti said, either because they believe or they share those views, or because their careers or their promotions and postings could be somewhere involved. But I think the Muslim community has to sit together and think of the response. However difficult it might be to restrain youth from getting provoked, but I think that has to be done, and that has to be the badge of bravery, that we didn't get provoked. Tell the story that this is what happened in the procession, but we didn't get provoked. I think that will be a better narrative, perhaps, And but we'll have to think about response, an appropriate response, and that response, although should come from Muslim community, but I would say not just Muslim community. I think it should come from all the secular and democratic forces. They should all come, all the humanists, all Hindus who don't want their religion to be misused in this manner. Lastly, I would say that violence has been so crucial in growth of Hindu nationalists. It was always, we have been documenting riot center. My father did it since many decades, and Center for Study of Society and Secularism did it since its inception, and we are continuing that. And if you see the, I'm not going to go into details, but it's a fascinating story, as fascinating story as Joy told us about the change of the times. The post-partition riots, forget the partition-related riots, but the riots that occurred, the first big riot of independent India was 1961 in Jabalpur. Riots after that, riots after riots, you see the scale of damage that those riots were capable is going on increasing, because this institutionalized riot system, as Paul Brass calls it, this entire system, is learning how to inflict maximum damage to life and property of the quote-unquote enemy community within the shortest period of time, because within 72 hours army comes. So within 72 hours, if you see the scale of death of 1961, in 1980s, Meerut, Malyana, Aligarh, Muradabad, all these riots, the scale keeps on rising, the death toll, until 1989 in Bhagalpur, where about 1,000 people were killed in just 48 hours. Now, that requires a lot of skills to and learn how to inflict that damage, because if we decide, if we convert ourselves into mob, and if I were to incite you into some violence, and if we are going to go out and attack the enemy community, all of us sitting in this hall, we wouldn't have arms, we wouldn't have wherewithals, we would, in next 5-10 hours or 24 hours, even if somebody gave us 24 hours, you go and riot and nothing will happen to you. I doubt how many people we will be able to kill, because we are not skilled. 1,000. And then 2002 happens. And every subsequent, we see that in maximum number of. And now the book tries to capture the new pattern. The new pattern is, the task of Hindutva cadres is just to provoke and then scoot, get out of the scene. The rest, state and police will do. Whatever the rioters used to do, state and police will do the riot. So the nature of state is changing. It's becoming more authoritarian towards the Hindu Raj that they wanted to, they want to establish. It is still work in progress, but it is acquiring through CAA, Waqf Act, anti-cow slaughter acts, anti-conversion laws, love jihad laws, uniform civil code. It is acquiring the weapons, the teeth to oppress not only Muslims but all oppressed sections, workers, peasants, Dalits, women, etc., etc. They are of course taking name of Muslims and Christians, but actually the attack is on all oppressed sections, and in fact on democracy itself, on rule of law itself. So we all have to realize that that's what we have to protect. Today the victims may be Christians and Muslims, but tomorrow it's going to be the other oppressed sections. With this I'll conclude whatever I wanted to present. I hope we have done a good job. We have received some good appreciation from various quarters for doing this. Giving this name to the book was also fraught with all kinds of possibilities. In fact, we didn't give this name to the book. When we sent the manuscript to the publisher, it was in the name of Lord Ram. But the publisher, for whatever marketing tactics or for whatever, the publisher suggested this title, Weaponizing Hindu Festivals. And we felt, well, there's nothing wrong with the title. It reflects what is there in the book. And we also gave our approval for the title. So we have been documenting. We will document for the posterity to learn. And so far, although the book must have reached, and it has reached, because we organized this book discussions also in Ahmedabad, Gujarat, and where, in fact, when we organized this in month of February end, we were told that in last 4-5 years, the word communalism, sampradayikta has not been mentioned in Gujarat. And this civil society organizations are telling, PUCL, Narmada Bachao, National Alliance for People's Movement, they were telling us that we don't use this word anymore in this state. It's fraught with trouble, and you are coming up with this title. It was, they found it very provocative, but we could hold discussion, and they were thanking us actually. So we have produced this. I hope you will all like this book, and you would like to buy also, and you'll like. But if you have any questions towards any, there was fascinating.
Thank you very much for this very interesting discussion, and a big thank you to both the authors for all the fact-finding that you all have done. It's not an easy job to do. My question is, so Jyoti talked a lot about possibilities of how we can stop or how we can prevent or do something to change situations. I was just wondering whether we needed also to go to the root cause of all this. So for instance, when Joy mentioned the change in his father, okay, this is something that I've experienced with a lot of my friends. I have a lot of Hindu friends. I wouldn't call them right-wing, but there is a feeling of being a victim. And I think this is one of the root causes of why, at least among the educated classes, of why they feel, sort of some sort of oneness with the violence that is happening, although they themselves would not do it, but they would justify it. So this is something that I think we need to look at, the whole aspect of feeling a victim. The second thing that I also, I think Irfan alluded to it when he talked, was this whole aspect of stereotyping. we tend to see all Muslims as one kind, all Hindus as, one time, all Christians, whatever. And the sad part of it is when we stereotype, we take the worst, we take the most fundamentalist, and we say that this is what they all are like. So I was wondering, how do we address this? Do you have anything, do you think it's even possible to address these kind of issues as a way of perhaps lessening the kind of violence and the kind of negativity that and the division that we are seeing happening? And we're all experiencing this. We're experiencing this in our lives all the time, with friends, with families. Simple things like, you'll suddenly have friends talking about all these movies that suddenly became so popular and were given a tax exemption, okay? And they are saying, oh wow, what beautiful movies, let's go and see it. Or somebody talking about Navratri, and yeah, it's a good thing that all the meat shops are closed. So, I'm just saying that we're coming across this now more and more, and I also find that a lot of us are also, a lot of people are now using, we all have multiple identities, but I find that everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people are now looking at their religious identity as a prime identity, and I think this is a big problem. So these are just some comments that I wanted to make.
Hi, can I ask? Yeah. Thank you so much for this wonderful documentation. So anyway, so my question is to both the authors, and any one of you can answer it. So the first question is regarding the title of it. The subtitle is Communal Violence. So I'm asking this on the basis of politics of vocabulary and its narrative. So my question is why you have chosen the word violence instead of pogrom. So so the reference is, if you read someone like Irfan Ahmad, in his book called Warfare of Algebra and Warfare, so here he's talking about when you use the word riot or violence, it means you are placing the responsibility of violence equally on both the communities, and on that basis he has criticized Sudhapai and all these people. So the first question is this: why? So example in Bhagalpur riots and Babri Masjid issue, and then 2002 Gujarat riot, then recent Northeast Delhi riot. We have seen that how RSS and BJP has institutionalized this violence on Muslims. So it was pogrom. So why you have chosen, the author has chosen the word violence instead of pogrom? The first question is this, and the second one is, so there, if you see the timeline, the major pogrom in India, like the first that violence happened in partition, then Bhagalpur riots, then 1992, then Gujarat riots. So we have seen that state was much more actively in institutionalizing the pogrom or violence. But now what we are seeing, and this you people have mentioned in your previous book in Status of Freedom Religion, that before 2014 the riots were happening large in numbers, but now the number has actually come down, but its intensity got increased. This is what you have mentioned in your previous book. So on the basis of this, I just want to know your view on this. Like now what we are seeing in these riots, the ordinary people are killing ordinary people. Earlier it was not like this, but how this pathological shift has taken place now in contemporary pogroms. So these are two questions, and I had third question also, but okay, it's okay.
Thank you very much for inviting us, and it was nice to hear the lecture by all the Dominion people. I have just one short comment to make. Yeah, there's no problem with the festival, whether it is Hindu or Muslim. Just my concern is to loudspeaker volume, decibel limit. The High Court has already said that limit. I think so is 55 decibel. Yeah, that is need to be implemented, whether it is outside or inside. So means I don't know if its problem can be solved, but my mind suggests me this. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Yeah. No, big thank you to all four of you, and in particular to Joy and Jyoti for what you said, both at a personal level. I was touched by what Joy said, and Jyoti was very accurate in describing her experiences, and I was touched by the examples you gave of where communal violence was prevented actively by either the police or by some mohalla groups. So I think we need to focus a little bit more on this in capturing the story. Having said that, I must express that the title is provocative. I don't have an alternate title offhand to relate, but I don't think, I think you should have been more careful with the title, because I'm going to purchase the book, don't worry, and I'm going to read it. But no, it's not a question of, but I think if we are to advocate ideas, we have to talk about how to prevent and tackle the challenges that are being faced in the celebration of Hindu festivals. So,
Hi. Okay. So as a born Hindu, let me clarify one thing. अभी कोर्ट ने जो बोला है कि we can't perform namaz on road. So it's not just namaz that has been performed on road. Most of the Hindu festivals are done on the road, right? Whether you play Holi, you don't play it Holi in your kitchen, you play it outside. You don't crack crackers in your hall, you do it in street, right? So one thing, it's not just Muslims who are performing their religious whatever on road, it's Hindus as well, it's Christian as well. Second most important thing is, as Irfan Bhai said very correctly, that in one hand they have their idols, their lords or whatever, right? And at the same time, they are abusing, they are, some of them are drunk, they are in the influence of whatever drugs, whatever, right? I mean, I don't know, is this spiritualism or religion we are talking about? I mean, it's better, बोलते थे, atheist है, इसका कोई धर्म नहीं है, इसका कोई what, he doesn't have any standard, right? In that case, it's good to be an atheist. And that's all. By the way, your name is good.
Thank you for the very enlightening book talk, and I look forward to reading the book. My question is for Jyoti. Is there, have these processions played a role in consolidation of Hindu identity across class differences? And if there is a role that has been played, then would you please elaborate on that? Thank you.
Okay, well, I mean, my experience was from 3 recent processions, but I would say that they have they were an effort to consolidate Hindu identity across classes and castes, but I don't see the great class difference in them. There may have been different castes, I couldn't make out that. But class-wise, it didn't seem like very many upper or even middle class people were there. Of course, the organizers were all upper class and all. But apart from that, the participants didn't seem to be from, they all seemed to be from the slum. I didn't know whether it consolidated it across. Shopkeepers might have donated money and all that, but I don't know if they took part in the procession. I don't know whether that, I don't think so. In those kind of processions, only in one of them, that Shaurya, there was a definitely, that was I could say that was a middle class procession. That was to celebrate the Babri Masjid demolition. It was a small procession, not very large. It was a Sunday morning and all. They were like middle class types, Marathi speaking, most of them, or Hindi speaking. There were not too many slum dwellers and all. It was mostly a middle class procession actually. It was an RSS procession where RSS people and their family members and those their friends whom they could convince to come, they came. It was not a very grand procession. That was a middle class procession. But the other two, yeah, okay, sorry. There was one procession which was taken out on Mira Road, so supposedly to avenge the riot which took place. There was violence there in which one Hindu was stabbed and hospitalized last year. And this was to avenge that stabbing, although everyone had already been arrested, but still they wanted to show that not enough has been done. So in that procession, a lot of young professionals, chartered accountants and stuff like that, who had come from all kinds of places. It was not just Mira Road residents, yeah. There it was definitely across classes, the ones who took part, not the ones who were dancing, but the ones who were taking part, it was across classes. So I would say, yeah, they have succeeded to some extent to build a Hindu identity. Caste, I mean, in a procession, it's not obvious who's from which caste, so I really can't say. I couldn't make out. There was no such thing.
In Khambat and Himmatnagar in Gujarat, your question is absolutely appropriate. But also look at it this way, that the rallies are just one of the ways to actually kind of build a uniform, stitch a uniform identity. So in the, I happened to interview one of the right-wing organizers. And it's very interesting, you know, like I was saying, there is a proliferation of right-wing organizations, and it also has a very distinct caste identity to it. So RSS was one where we always knew it was mainly a upper caste, Brahmin-headed organization. But if you see the characteristics of these newer organizations, it's more OBCs. It's they have been able to, in a huge way, appropriate Dalits and Adivasis. And, you know, we went a little ahead and tried to understand how do they mobilize for rallies like this or processions like this. And it's just not for the rally or the procession. Their work is year-long. So they will go to the rural areas. They will try to appropriate the culture there and how you can give it a Hindu twist to it. So, you know, for example, reading something as simple as Ramayana, or, you know, going to the Adivasis and appropriating their icons, but saying, you know what, but they were actually Hindus. Haven't you heard about Hanuman? Haven't you heard about, you know, they try to give it a spin, which is a Hindu spin. So these processions is just one way now, after you have got indoctrinated, to come out and really participate in a youth spectacle, which is this one grand show of unity. There is clearly a caste angle to this, and they have been very successful, and that's one of the success stories of the right wing. Should I start answering about the book, or do you?
Hi, I'm joining very late, but great. This is actually documentations for the history. These are the 2002 22 and 23 में जो कुछ भी महाराष्ट्र सरकार ने जैसे ही अपनी नई सरकार बनाया, और उस समय पर उन्होंने एक के बाद एक महाराष्ट्र में एक ऐसा एक हिंदुत्ववादी माहौल बनाया. और अभी कोई कास्ट के सवाल कर रहे थे, तो मेरा मन हो रहा था कि कुछ कहने के लिए. हम जानते हैं कि जो एंटी कन्वर्जन बिल आया था, उस बिल में पहले वो कास्ट और रिलीजन दोनों के बारे में बात कर रहे थे, और फिर उसके बाद में उन्होंने कास्ट को हटाया और सिर्फ रिलीजन रखा. तो दिस इज़ एक्चुअली टारगेटिंग फॉर द, अगर हम रिलीजन एंटी कन्वर्जन बिल में रखते हैं तो इसका मतलब है कि सरकार को एक टारगेट करना है एक पर्टिकुलर कम्युनिटी को लेकर। और जो कास्ट उन्होंने एंटी कन्वर्जन बिल से हटाया, उसका मतलब यही है कि जो दलित हैं या जो ट्राइबल्स हैं उसको किस तरीके से हिंदुआइजेशन करने की कोशिश करना, और यही मैसेज जो है इस पूरे सरकार का है। और ये रामनवमी का जो पूरा एक इस प्रोसेशन में जो कुछ भी महाराष्ट्र में लगभग 60 से ज़्यादा ऐसे जगहों पे राइड्स हुए, नॉट राइड्स एक्चुअली, पूरा स्टेट स्पॉन्सर जो पुलिस का और स्टेट मशीनरी का जो पूरा एक हिंदुत्ववादी माहौल दिखा। वी आल्सो पार्ट ऑफ द वन ऑफ द जलगांव एंड औरंगाबाद फैक्ट फाइंडिंग टीम एंड और हमने ये सब इसको नज़दीक से ये देखा कि कैसे ये एक स्टेट का पूरा एक मशीनरी जो है वो कैसे पूरी तरह से तैयार कर रहा है एक कम्युनिटी के अगेंस्ट में जाने के लिए, और ये मानसिकता तैयार करने के लिए कि वो कम्युनिटी जो है अगर उसने एक पत्थर भी उठाया तो कैसे उनके खिलाफ़ जाया जा सकता है, और जो सरकार ने कई लोगों को किया। तो मुझे लगता है कि ये बहुत ही इंटरेस्टिंग थिंग है कि आज हम इसके ऊपर बात कर रहे हैं, कम से कम ऐसे माहौल में जहाँ पे बात करने की जगह नहीं है। लेकिन जो इरफान कह रहे हैं मुझे लगता है वो बहुत इम्पॉर्टेंट है कि एक के बाद एक टारगेट किया जा रहा है मुसलमान कम्युनिटी को, और मुसलमान जो है वो अभी तक के इसके बारे में रिस्पॉन्स नहीं कर रहे हैं। जो हम चाहते हैं कि वो रिस्पॉन्स करें और अंडर द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशंस के सोच के साथ करें, जो नहीं हो रहा है। तो ये जो नहीं होना है, ये जो सन्नाटा है, इस सन्नाटे के लिए मुसलमान कम्युनिटी ज़िम्मेदार नहीं है, ये सन्नाटे के लिए मेजॉरिटी कम्युनिटी ज़िम्मेदार है। जो अथॉरिटेरियन कम्युनिटी है उसको ज़िम्मेदार होना पड़ेगा, और उसको ये समझना पड़ेगा कि एक के बाद एक वायलेंस होने के बाद इतना सन्नाटा एक पर्टिकुलर कम्युनिटी की होते जा रही है, और ये रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी हम सबको यहाँ से लेनी होगी।
Tell you one very interesting instance in Bengal. There's an area called Jungle Mahal in the Purulia region over there, which used to be a complete red bastion, complete Maoist area, top to bottom, from little kids to up there. And I've worked there in that area and I've met those people and all stuff. After the fall of the left front government in Bengal, within 4 years, that entire tribal area became RSS area. Entire. How does it become from absolute red? Like, Jungle Mahal was like an example of what a total red area could be. Within 4 years, from absolute red to absolute saffron. And the entire tribal identity, it did not rediscover its own tribal identity. It just went straight to. So their strategy, their tutoring, their engineering is very successful. And we need to understand how they do it. They apparently said, I mean, it's recorded, that they have learned from us. No, it's true. It was mentioned that we have learned from you. There are RSS youngsters who said, we have read Trotsky and stuff. We have studied your Operation Barga in Bengal in social reform and land reform and how to penetrate and create the so-called Jan